Chapter 16. New Morning Star. The shades of night had by now lengthened. The moon was very high over Striven. The shadows and shapes were clothed in night's unearthly light of timelessness. The desert was still and silent. Juliana was not sure how long she had been sitting in the rock cleft, but her muscles ached and she felt stiff and sore and numb and awful. She unfurled her limbs like a rainforest fern. Never before had she felt more like a piece of protoplasm on a rock. Surely it had all been a nightmare. In an agony of spirit and body, she looked and saw that it was all true. Blood, blood, blood! It was scattered like morning dew across the pale, unforgiving sands. And she sat herself down and did mourn. Tentatively this time she looked through tear-stained eyes again at the sight. Something was not right. Something was different. It was true there was the sand still stretched out before her, but from her elevated view she could see something happening in the sand. A gentle wind blew across the desert, and she saw at once that the Pelican's blood moved. Strange as it was, the blood formed itself into letters. Each letter was about the size of a man if he lay down flat. They spelt themselves out, one by one, letter by letter, each of which she could easily distinguish. First J, then U, then L, and so on until she saw the words Juliana E. Wintour. No, now what? She thought, blind and confused. What could this mean? I don't understand. What do they want with me this time? None of this makes any sense. Oh my! She sobbed helplessly. All the while, the healing zephyr blew across the desert and carried the blood away. Somehow, the sight of the blood to Juliana, while terrifying, was also comforting. When the last traces of it had finally disappeared, she felt very sad and lonely. Horrible as it was, at least when it was there, he was still here with me in the desert. But now even that bit of him is to be taken from me, and I am all alone, she thought mournfully. Now her mind turned slowly, as if thinking through mud or sludge. She had to face the very real problem of what to do next. If she went back to Striven, assuming of course she could even get in, how could she explain why she had not been killed? They might turn violent. After all, they'd been prepared to sacrifice her once before. Fear and pride might compel them to do it again, and this time succeed. But she could not stay here, not with that monster still lurking about. True, he was nowhere to be seen now, but who knows when he might return? Besides, how could she live? She was incredibly thirsty, and there was no water or food to be had. She had just given herself over to another violent paroxysm of tears and despair, when she looked up into the bright, hard sky. She could just make out in the gloom a pinprick at first, a growing light which the dark nearly swallowed up. Stronger and stronger it grew, and then it made itself clear. It was a star. At first she thought it must be Corion, but something about it soon became clear that this was no ordinary star. It was much bigger and brighter than Corion. In fact, it filled the whole sky. It almost looked as if the whole sky could not fill it. Now the darkness became a pinprick in the light, and even that disappeared. The star burned. Juliana stopped crying and simply looked at it. She forgot herself entirely, so ecstatically lost was she in the great beauty of that star. It kept drawing her in like a cool swimming pool on a hot summer's day. One glance at that magnificent star and she was undone. All her senses were alive and tingling with the beauty and the splendour of it. And moment by moment, as she gazed, she began to feel all her anxiety melt away like snow in a summer stream. She began to feel as if she were a little chicken emerging from its shell, feeling the warm sun on its back for the first time. All the terror and the ugliness, the dirt and fear and worry and anger, boredom, pride, pain, self-pity, exhaustion, despair, tears, heat and stink of her life here were shedding away, like sloughing off the dead skin cells and revealing a new soft skin underneath. Only it was like no skin she had ever known. Her mind, never bright or quick at the best of times, now felt strong, sleek, alert. Her body felt sinuous and alive with light and energy. She wanted to fly, jump, swim, and spin into infinity. The music of 1,000 orchestras resounded in her ears, and she felt she could sing, laugh, and trumpet all at the same time. The fervent realization that Juliana had finally found the source of what she had been looking for all her life gave her a fierce, fearless joy. And all the time the star emitted cataracts of brilliant light and absorbed all in its spectacular dance. She too felt herself join in the courtly, stately dance, then abandoned herself to it. Twirling, eddying with the star, through the star, in the star, she could not tell which. It did not matter. She did not care now where she ended and it began. All that mattered was that it shone, and she basked in its high, pulsating light. Oh, the bliss! She could bear the sweetness now and for evermore. With face beaming, she turned to look at Striven. It was now ablaze with light and colour. She could not tell whether it was night or day. In the lavish light of the brightened morning star, Striven became clear. Later she would comment that the first thing she noticed was the clothes. Instead of rough potato sacks, they all wore new clothes that felt softer than Chinese silk. She looked down at her own clothes, and gone was the nasty, scratchy sack. Instead she wore a fabric that almost seemed fibre optic. Every thread appeared to be made of a soft, iridescent light. She glowed like a dragonfly. And the colours! They were colours that she had never seen before, born of a rainbow as yet unveiled. Bright jewel colours, soft baby pastels, all wonderfully radiant and delicious. She felt she tasted not only the old familiar ones, but new ones as well, colours that would melt your heart and in your mouth. Instead of children weighted down by sacks of rocks, festal garlands lighted on their little bare heads, and smiles wreathed their upturned faces like tinsel on a Christmas tree. Some were gathered, talking and laughing with friends. Others were dancing to a strange and solemn music, but not on the ground, through the air. When people say their feet never touched the ground, that is exactly what it was like. You didn't just hear the music or even feel it reverberate through you. You could actually see it, like ribbons tripping along quite merrily through that crisp, bright air. All this time the star shone, and without even fully knowing why, the people loved it and each other. For the first time she could breathe in that sweet-scented air. Now it was clean and bracing like mountain air. Then it was awash with the sibilant smells of cooling summer rain. Dewy crocuses, gardenias, lavender, and sturdy roses rioted across the good-smelling grass. The air tasted of cinnamon, mandarin, and smelt of white sage and warm spices. Someone played the cedar flute, and the sound and fragrance of cedar mingled into one. The pollened perfume of honeysuckle and jasmine floated up and tickled her nose. These aromas caressed, soothed, and exhilarated her all at once. Everything smelt like an open bottle of freshest nard. Its clear, bell-like notes intoxicated you until you thought you could not contain the thrill any more. And everywhere tall, noble trees appeared, and seemed to pick up their leafy skirts and move as one in some ancient forest dance. As Juliana moved through the town, she noticed that even the buildings were skillfully and handsomely refurbished. Where the masonry, pillars, arches, pavements, and houses were once cracked and misshapen, they were all now beautifully restored to their original regal splendour. Even the fish swimming in their watery wells were happy. But far above this, though no one could see, rose the mighty Pelican, with strength and power in his wings. From his beak dangled a writhing form, clutching a little wooden lodi. The thrashing figure was bound fast with ship ropes. As the Pelican drew nearer to the sun, belts of fire shot out violently. The atomic energy of 1 trillion solar flares lashed the cold, clear sky. And still the Pelican flew nearer and nearer. Finally he flew right into the heart of the sun and dropped the still belligerent bundle into the blazing furnace. Evil vaporized. Yet the heat did not melt the wings of the Pelican. It moved about steadily and unharmed in the inferno. Then it swiftly glided out and descended to the streets of the erstwhile Striven. There stood the Pelican, magnificent, fearsome, yet friendly. All Striven turned to look at this radiant figure. He spoke, and at his word there fell a sweet silence. "My people, my beloved people, welcome my dearest ones, my tenderest and most affectionate greetings to you all. Today I have walked into the mouth of the desert and suffered much for you, even death itself. But I have brought death to death, and now the new morning star has risen. I have slain the enemy which stole you from me and debased my land. So now the time has come to put your deadly doings down. We will start with those who have tyrannized and trampled you into the dirt and ashes. Come here and face high justice, all you despots, oppressors, and autocrats," said the Pelican. And at his word, the Doubtfears, Harpies, Guards, Under-Secretaries, and the Yorp of children's nightmares all appeared. The Doubtfears looked at the Pelican in horror, and at what their kingdom had become, and quickly looked about them for a way of escape. Meanwhile, the Yorp welled up like a big white-grey helium balloon. Seizing their opportunity, the Doubtfears fought each other to grab onto the Yorp and get out of there. Queen Gertie managed to knock her husband out of the way and firmly grasp both hands onto the tail of the Yorp. But King Fenwick was not going to risk staying here with that rabble down below. Oh, no, no, no. As the Yorp lifted away with the substantial bulk of the old queen gripping on for dear life, Fenwick latched on to one of the ascending ankles. Gertrude waggled and kicked to free herself of him, but he was determined and hung on. Then the Under-Secretary gurgled something, and he too clutched onto the ankles of the old king. Then the cruellest of the guards caught the Under-Secretary's feet. Meanwhile, the hoary old harpies flapped and shrieked around what now looked like a giant distended pig's bladder. Carrying its chain of miserable quislings, the Yorp rose higher and higher into the blue sky. Then it let out a great hissing scream and fizzled up into the ether, far out of sight. Whoops and cheers went up from the assembled crowd. "Hooray for our sovereign Pelican! Thank you! Thank you! No more slavery! Freedom! Bravo! Thank you! Yay!" The crowd roared in great relief. "See, and there is more, a never-ending more, my love," returned the Pelican. Everyone turned to see a table almost as long as the castle itself, set up for a celebration. It had that quiet air of expectancy which decorated dinner tables do. Draped in a luminous white cloth, it was magnificently decked out with glowing silver lanterns, laced with roses, lilies, and ivy. And the food! There was trifle, chocolate sculptures, clouds of fluffy ice cream, cider, cheese, apple pie, roast winter vegetables, plum bread, honey buns, summer pudding, crumpets, roast beef with Yorkshire pudding, fish and chips, and hibiscus cordial. Juliana could almost not speak for joy. She looked for Richard in the crowd, and there he was, standing next to a man and a woman with open, pleasant-looking faces. He too had lost the sackcloth, and with it the hungry, worried look that he used to wear. "Richard, isn't it wonderful? Look at what has happened. Everything is just amazing. Look at my clothes. They're beautiful." She did an enthusiastic little twirl for him. "Yes, it's all true. I don't know how I could ever have been tricked into believing all that bosh about the Lodi and stuff. That was all trash. This is treasure, real treasure. He, the Pelican, spoke to me. He explained what I kind of knew all along. He said that the Lodi's magic was short-lived. It never lasted. If you failed the Lodi, it wouldn't forgive you. And even if you got your dreams, they'd never satisfy. How could they? They were but cobwebs spun like gold. But this is real and never-ending. And he did it! He did it! By joy, he did it!" said Richard, laughing. "What do you mean?" she asked. "The Pelican told me that all along he had prepared joy for me here, and in Striven, in all the mines and the muck, he had prepared me for joy. But, Juliana, listen. This is Victoria and Arthur. Mum, Dad, meet my friend, Juliana," courteously introducing her. At this the couple smiled warmly at her and said it was nice to meet her. But then it was nice to meet everyone here. Juliana looked puzzled. "But I thought you were an orphan," she whispered to Richard. Before he could answer anything, along came a very tall lady of magnificent stature and the bearing of a duchess. She had clear eyes, flawless skin, and teeth of a perfect even whiteness. "Hello, Juliana. My name is Zara. I had heard about you before, and I was curious to meet you in person. Ah, there you are, my darlings." And with that, two equally magnificent people came tripping up beside her. "Isolde, Digby, meet Juliana," said the fine lady. "What? Digby?" exclaimed Juliana. "But didn't you, I mean—" She hardly dared utter the dreaded name of Lord Catfish, or the reckoning here. But how could she explain it? Digby, looking almost unrecognizable as a handsome, strong young man, smiled at her. "It's all right. Don't look so shocked. The Pelican met me in the desert too. I flew into his outstretched wings and found healing in their broken beauty. Bone for bone and flesh for flesh, he raised me to himself. I'm so grateful. He said that he would make everything all right, and by goodness he did. Look at me! Look at him!" More than that he would not say. They turned to watch Zara walk slowly up to the Pelican and lay down a beautiful blue quilt at his feet. Carefully stitched into it were 1,000 Swarovski crystal droplets, all shining in the sun. "Sir, I made this for my boy Digby. Evil stole him from me. Each teardrop that I cried for him froze into a salty crystal as it fell onto the quilt. I give it to you now, not in sadness, but in happiness, because he is alive. At long last, here we are together, with you," she beamed. "What you sowed in tears, you shall now reap in joy, my dear Zara. The Pelican bent and kissed her. "Come with me, Juliana," said a creamy voice. Juliana looked up to see the lady at the gate. "You can talk," she said instinctively. Taking up Juliana's hand in one of the finest, most silken hands she had ever held, Mithril answered her. "Yes, I can talk and sing and play my pipe. It was awful being accursed and condemned to a walled silence. But I was not destined to be deaf and dumb forever. And it's all because of him, the Pelican." The fabric of music was mercilessly shredded and torn. But when he was silenced in the desert, somehow he rewove the very filaments of sound. It's incredible but true. Now I can sing and pipe. He became deaf to the song of life itself, so that I could hear and make my music audible. And that made him beautifully clear to me. I'm so happy now. I'm so grateful to him, but let's not delay. Walk with me, and we will meet him. Mithril led her to the Pelican. Standing before him, she felt a terrible thrill of joy and wonderment. She didn't know whether to kneel down or hug him. As it was, she felt so overwhelmed that she did both. Her knees buckled under her, and her head fell into his chest of feathers, and she buried herself in their warm, soft bliss. She felt a mixture of relief, love, awe, rest, comfort, joy, and peace. She often later described it rather prosaically as having found the pulse of her heart. When she finally emerged from this feathery hug, she gazed up into those wise, profoundly kind eyes and asked plaintively, "Why? Why did you do it? I mean, out there in the desert. You didn't steal the cake, I did. Why did you let him kill you instead of me?" "I will explain more later, but for now just know this. The asking price for the theft of the cake was your life. But I love you, Juliana, so I paid the price I didn't owe, because you owed a price you couldn't pay," he explained. "Thank you. It'll take me forever to understand that." "You have all the time in the world," he smiled. "You know, when I came here, to the other horrible Striven, I hated it, and I just wanted to go home. And then I got that handkerchief with the strange riddle embroidered on it. I suppose that was from you, was it?" He nodded. "And you hated that too, and ignored it," said the Pelican. "Yes, because the riddle and Corian kept going on about helping all the others. I didn't need them or want to care about them. Being a friend, helping Richard and Digby and Mithril and all my lovely people, meant killing off a bit of you. And for you to love and suffer and keep on loving hurt very much. It always does," he said quietly. "But then Digby happened, and I saw you at the lake. Then I just had to do something. But even when I tried to do the right thing, I got trapped by that cake. I couldn't do it. I was bad when I was bad, and bad when I was good. I tried so hard. But even when I wanted to do good, I failed everyone. I didn't save them. I let them down when they were depending on me. I tried. I really did. It was just too hard. I let them down, and I didn't get home, and I still didn't find the white heart of stone and free Striven of the terror," she said, spiralling into a fit of self-reproach. "Yes, I know, and now you know too. And this is good," he said gently. "So much for being brought here for a purpose. It was all pointless," she moaned. "Your point could not be less true. At the heart of your half-heartedness existed a rather severe ogress who always ruled over you and kept you chained up as her slave. She would have chewed you up eventually. Her name is many things. For you, her name was comfort. No demands, no difficulties, no responsibility. The easy life and a wedge of cake. But she is a deceptively harsh mistress, an iron fist in a faux fur glove. But you thought that taking the easy line of least hassle was best for you, instead of what I told you in the riddle was best. And what was good for others turned out to be the best for you. In the end, my dear child, you ended up getting the very thing that you feared. You felt more uncomfortable than if you had just relaxed your grip, stopped fighting, come quietly, and set to getting the stone straight away. How do you know? I might have searched and searched forever, and still never found the dratted thing. It was obviously so well hidden it was impossible for anyone to find. Do you remember what the words of the riddle said? Saved for life, but not alone. Lose your comfort, find the stone. Soon the pelican will fly. Think back, Juliana. When did you first see the pelican fly? On the lake. At the boathouse. Understanding dawned. Oh, you mean it was somewhere there. But that area was huge, and there are all those trees and reeds and bushes. How could I? She said defensively. And then she remembered how the pelican had motioned to her at the bank. She remembered, too, how she had hesitated and ignored the little embryo of an idea to go to the pelican when he had gestured to her. As if reading her thoughts, he said, I came from the heavens to meet you that night, Juliana. Could you not row out a little further to meet me? Yes, I suppose so, she said, coyly digging a big toe around in the ground. So it was there on the bank that you left that small glittery thing? Yes, but when you did not heed my signal, I had to take it with me for safekeeping. For he was every inch a gentleman. He wouldn't force her will when he could give her an invitation. Reach into the right side of my chest, he said. Juliana tentatively put her hand into the soft feathers and touched a raised piece of flesh, a scar. He flinched, and a cascade of feathers rippled over his majestic frame. She quickly pulled back a hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hurt you? And then one awful thought dawned on her. Is that where... did he do that to you when he, Her voice trailed off. Yes, but I would not let that happen to you. Even though you did not see me, I have watched and loved you. Having you and Richard and Digby and Isolde and Mithril and all the others here with me, enjoying my new home, which is now your home, meant the world to me. Losing you all in that reign of terror saddened me more than you will ever know. And you could not get back to me. The only way that I could shield you, stop the slaughter and selfishness, and recreate this kind, fresh world, was to cede my core to the evil flesh-eater. He did not know it, but my flesh was more than he could bear. What he thought bore victory for himself really marked his expiration date. And so I came back to get you, for me and through me and with me forever. Now we have a love without parting. Try again, Juliana. This time Juliana reached carefully but confidently into the warmth of the pelican's chest. Next to the scar was the white heart of stone. Its weight felt cool and solid in her hand. She picked it up. Take it to the Symbola and let the stone heart find its final resting place in the bed of its ancient shield, he directed. Will Corion please step forward and deliver the Symbola to me? Corion appeared and bowed very low when he saw the pelican. He breathed reverently. My liege. My dear Corion, said the pelican with great affection, arise, it is good to see you, my loyal friend. You did well. I did, for all the good it did. They paid no heed to me. I just wasted my breath, he replied. But you did not waste my breath. You always did worry too much, Corion, but never mind that now. It is all past. Later on we will talk of sages and strings and celestial things. But first the Symbola, please, he said. Corion held the black briefcase which Juliana at once recognized as the mental case of their previous encounter, and then she heard a nice firm click as he opened it, took out the shield, and handed it to the Pelican. The Pelican turned to address the great crowd. "My beloved friends, it is now time and half a time. My blood and flesh have unmade the vile evil that brutalized you and this land. High justice was done. Now we can love and live together in total freedom from fear and death in my glorious world. To herald in the final happiness of this new day, there is one last deed to be done," he said, radiating delight and gladness to all the people gathered before him. He turned to Juliana. "Set the white heart of stone in its shield, please, Juliana," he said. She placed the stone in its indentation, and as she did, two things happened. First, the dry fountain in the quadrangle courtyard started to leap and flash, then roar into life. A great rhythm of water shot up hundreds of feet out of the unicorn's horn into the sky. As it climbed heavenward, spouting and spraying, it flung up its heels in a merry, bubbling dance that felt at once both calming and energizing. Then, as if fed by 1,000 subterranean streams, the white skeletal frames of the jacaranda trees started to bloom. Their lilac feathery leaves grew quickly, as if filmed in fast forward. On every leaf of every tree, another's garden smiled at me, she would often say later as she recalled this moment. "Behold, it is now complete. It shall no longer be called striven, for work is over. It is now time to rest and be merry and feast and love. It shall be once more called Castle Jacaranda, in the kingdom of Pelican's Rest," declared the Pelican in happy triumph. Drowned out by more cheers and shouts and banner-waving and general commotion, the Pelican quietly took Juliana aside. Amid the din of feasting and festivities, he said, "It is your time now, Juliana." But she didn't hear him. Pensively, she asked him what had happened to Lord Catfish. All he would say was something about him having a hotline to Helios and the cunning catfish being vanquished for good. What this exactly meant, Juliana could not make out. But that Pelican's Rest was finally rid of this scourge and menace, she had no doubt. "Remember what you have seen and heard in this world, Juliana. When you are back in Gumleaf Downs, you will see bits of the old cruel Striven splash into your world. I cannot promise that it will not hurt you and others you love. I cannot promise that it won't be uncomfortable either. But these times will not last forever. You must make sure that bits of the new, good, true, brave, and beautiful Pelican's Rest splash into your world too." "Eh? But I don't want to go. School and my whole life in Gumleaf Downs seems so unreal now, like a faded dream. I know I said that I wanted to go home, but that was before all this, you understand. You're not going to send me back there. Not now that I know," she implored. "It is precisely because you do know that you must go back, Juliana. I perished in the desert to liberate Striven and bring all these people home to me. But I also did it so that I can send you back out there to laugh and cry and sing and love and suffer under my wings. For this purpose you were brought to the rim of this world, and for this purpose I am sending you back to Gumleaf Downs. You were spared in order to remember me as you talk and play, cook, eat, clean, run, dance, compose, design, discover, repair, read and teach in your ordinary, extraordinary life. And in doing so, push back the evil and do good, and keep on doing good until time's time and half a time," he said. She sighed. I suppose this is the "home calls fair maidie now return" bit of the riddle? It is. But I thought you said this was a love without parting. She played a trump card. For them, there is no life anew apart from love, and you shall be part of such a life as this one day. Begin now, he tenderly urged her. I shall miss you, and Pelican's Rest, and all my friends very badly, she said, wistfully looking back at that champagne land, and at the lively scenes of merrymaking that were going on behind them. You mean the friends you don't need, he said teasingly. Yeah, sorry about that. That's all right. All is forgiven. Farewell, Juliana. Remember me. Goodbye, goodbye. The Pelican's musical voice trailed off. A bell chimed midnight. Time, which had been behaving normally until then, suddenly began turning upon some bright point in negative space, and all faded to black in her optic nerve. The 5:01 bus steamed up to the curb and shuddered to a jaunty halt. Juliana blinked, rose, and moved calmly down the walkway. "Peregrine's Landing, love," said the bus driver, tugging at his black cap. "It's not Pelican's Landing, then?" she asked. "No, like I said, Peregrine's Landing, Gumleaf Downs. You can see the city lights from up here on a clear night," he said. "Thank you, Arnold," she said, alighting from the bus. "Don't forget your souvenir, love. Keep it close," directed the bus driver, and with that the bus shifted off. Coming out under the broad canopy of heaven, Juliana walked down the familiar path of Sophistry Drive. She glanced upwards at the star-misted sky. Then she looked resolutely ahead, stopping briefly to pick up something that caught her eye on the ground. She tucked it into her pocket and walked down the dewy primrose path to home, hot chocolate, and homework. Deep in the pocket of her bottle-green jacket nestled a milk-white feather with black tips. The vault of the evening sky deepened into a purplish black. Pewter-coloured trees quivered in the cool night breeze. She was home at last, home in the land of the Pelican.